Does this movie get anything right? The history, the mythology, the visual effects. It's all laughable. There is nothing good about Gods of Egypt. The story feels like something that's been recycled, regurgitated, and churned out by various other mythologically inaccurate Hollywood films. And the end product is Gods of Egypt. There are multiple trials and adventures the heroes face, yet also forgettable and useless. The movie is full of plot holes and conveniences, yet you've probably missed most of the plot holes, because from the 5th minute, you've become so bored that everything you watch is just nonsense, and none of it is worth your time to concentrate on the story. The characters are bland, not just the humans but the gods as well. The performances give the characters no justice of salvation. The cast is not really much to revel in. There are some good actors here, but they never showcase the same level of effort than they do in their TV shows. Chadwick Boseman probably being the only standout, and the rest are just disposable. The lead human, Beck, is just terrible. So the movie was pretty much slandered in every direction. It's considered one of the worst movies of 2016. The director, Alex Proyas, cited many influences for Gods of Egypt, including the epic Lawrence of Arabia, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. And none of those influences are presented in Gods of Egypt. Not one. You couldn't even film in an actual desert. It had to be CGI. Even the set and the sky was a green screen, because you filmed in a park in Sydney. The casting of the film, like most of these Prince of Persia type of movies, received heavy criticism for casting white actors playing Egyptian people. It was this type of whitewashing that has caused the industry to think about how they offend every culture in the world that isn't America. Realize that to regain good press was by casting minorities in excess. You may think this was done for the sake of diversity and cultural appropriation. I would say it was done for the purpose of good press. The backlash over the casting of predominantly white actors in Gods of Egypt stems from a long history of Hollywood's problematic approach to racial representation. The film, set in ancient Egypt and revolving around Egyptian gods and heroes, controversially featured white actors in nearly all its leading roles. Gerard Butler, a Scottish actor, portrayed Set, the god of chaos, while Nikolai Coster-Waldau, a Danish actor, played Horus, the falcon-headed god of the sky. These casting choices drew heavy criticism for perpetuating whitewashing, a practice in which white actors are cast in roles that are historically, culturally, or racially non-white. The outcry against the casting began as soon as the trailer was released, with audiences and critics pointing out the glaring absence of actors of Middle Eastern or African descent, with the exception of Chadwick Boseman. Given that ancient Egypt was a North African civilization with ties to sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, the decision to cast white actors was widely viewed as erasing the identity of the culture the film purported to depict. This casting decision seemed especially egregious in light of the fact that Hollywood has a large pool of talented actors of diverse ethnic backgrounds, who are often overlooked for major roles. The backlash intensified with the film's release, as it became emblematic of Hollywood's ongoing disregard for authentic representation. Viewers and scholars alike noted how such casting choices contribute to a false narrative that centers whiteness as the default, even in stories deeply rooted in non-white cultures. The casting of Gods of Egypt reflects a broader trend in Hollywood of telling non-Western stories through a Western-centric lens. Historically, the film industry has often misrepresented or marginalized cultures by reimagining them to suit the expectations of predominantly white audiences. Examples abound, from Elizabeth Taylor's portrayal of Cleopatra to Jake Gyllenhaal's role in Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. These casting decisions not only deny opportunities to actors of the appropriate ethnicity, but also strip cultural narratives of their authenticity. Hollywood's preference for white actors in such roles is often justified by producers with claims that big-budget films need bankable stars to succeed. This argument fails to account for the changing demographics of movie audiences worldwide, who increasingly demand representation and authenticity. Recent successes of diverse films like Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians have debunked the myth that diverse casting compromises a film's profitability. The exclusion of Middle Eastern and African actors from Gods of Egypt has several troubling implications. Casting white actors in roles based on Egyptian mythology, contributes to the erasure of the region's rich history and identity. Ancient Egypt, one of the most advanced and influential civilizations in human history, has often been whitewashed in popular media, perpetuating a Eurocentric view of world history by ignoring the geographical and ethnic realities of the region. Gods of Egypt reinforces a distorted image of Egypt as a land disconnected from its African roots. The lack of Middle Eastern or African actors in leading roles denies these communities opportunities to see themselves reflected on screen in heroic or complex narratives. Representation in media is a powerful tool for fostering cultural pride and breaking down stereotypes, and Gods of Egypt squandered a chance to showcase the talent and depth of actors from these regions. Whitewashing non-white stories perpetuates harmful stereotypes by implying that only white actors are fit for central heroic roles. This practice indirectly marginalizes people of color, relegating them to side characters, villains, or background roles. It also sends a message that their stories are not valuable enough to warrant accurate representation. The global nature of today's film market means that Hollywood's missteps in representation resonate far beyond the United States. For audiences in Egypt and other countries with ties to the region, Gods of Egypt was likely viewed as an offensive and tone-deaf interpretation of their heritage. This diminishes Hollywood's credibility and its ability to connect with diverse audiences worldwide. The backlash prompted an apology from Lionsgate, the studio behind Gods of Egypt, which admitted that the casting did not reflect modern expectations of diversity and representation. Director Alex Proyas also apologized, acknowledging that the criticism was valid. However, many critics and audiences felt that the apology rang hollow, as it came only after the widespread condemnation and did not address the systemic issue underlying the decision-making process. The controversy surrounding Gods of Egypt highlights the urgent need for Hollywood to reevaluate its approach to storytelling and casting. Films rooted in specific cultural or historical contexts must prioritize authenticity and inclusion. By casting actors from the cultures they aim to represent, filmmakers can create richer, more resonant stories that honor their source material. The growing success of diverse and inclusive films in recent years offers a hopeful indication that the industry is beginning to learn from past mistakes. The liberties Gods of Egypt takes with Egyptian mythology are among the most glaring criticisms of the film, undermining its ability to represent the culture it draws from in a meaningful way. Instead of faithfully adapting the rich and intricate stories of Egyptian mythology, the filmmakers opted for a haphazard amalgamation of myths, gods, and fantastical elements, often without regard to historical or cultural accuracy. This lack of respect for the source material not only alienates audiences familiar with Egyptian mythology, but also reduces the depth and complexity of the narratives. In Egyptian mythology, the pantheon of gods is deeply interconnected, with nuanced relationships and roles tied to specific aspects of nature, the cosmos, and human life. Gods of Egypt, however, reimagines these deities and their stories to fit a conventional Hollywood template of good versus evil, stripping away the richness of the original mythology. Horus is a multifaceted deity associated with kingship, protection, and the sky. The film reduces him to a stereotypical action hero seeking revenge for his father Osiris's death. Set is a complex figure in mythology, representing chaos and the desert but not inherently evil. The film portrays him as a one-dimensional villain whose sole motivation is power, erasing the dualities and cultural significance for his role. The sun god Ra is depicted as a solitary figure tasked with defending the world from Apophis, a serpent of chaos, while the mythological Ra does combat Apophis. His role in the film feels disconnected from the other gods, ignoring his integral position in the Egyptian pantheon. The film's plot revolves around Set killing Osiris and blinding Horus to seize the throne, with Horus seeking vengeance. While there is a mythological basis for Set's rivalry with Horus, the actual myths focus on a legal battle and physical contests over the rightful claim to Egypt's throne, not the kind of straightforward revenge narrative seen in the film. The film's interpretation removes the mythological context and reduces the gods to archetypes familiar to Western audiences. Egyptian mythology is deeply symbolic, with themes of balance, the afterlife, and the cyclical renewal playing central roles. The film glosses over these themes, instead emphasizing spectacle and shallow drama. For example, the afterlife is depicted as a series of gates that require payment, an oversimplification of the intricate and symbolic journey through Duat. By blending and distorting these myths, Gods of Egypt fails to represent Egyptian culture in a meaningful way. This failure has several consequences. The film perpetuates misconceptions about Egyptian culture, reducing its rich mythology to generic fantasy tropes. The gods, who were originally deeply symbolic and tied to natural and cosmic forces, are portrayed as humanoid beings with oversized, mechanical animal forms. While visually striking, this interpretation prioritizes spectacle over cultural authenticity. Films based on mythology often serve as an introduction to the culture they depict. Gods of Egypt could have offered audiences a window into the values, beliefs, and narratives of ancient Egypt. Instead, it presents a sanitized, westernized version of the mythology that lacks depth or authenticity. The inaccuracies and liberties taken with the source material alienate Egyptian audiences and others familiar with the mythology, when cultural narratives are appropriated and distorted for entertainment. It sends a message that these stories are not valuable or worthy of accurate representation. By disregarding the intricacies of Egyptian mythology, Gods of Egypt squanders an opportunity to bring ancient stories to life in a way that honors their cultural origins. The film's inaccuracies and lack of respect for its source material contribute to its failure as both entertainment and representation. Gods of Egypt stands as a glaring example of how cultural insensitivity and a lack of authenticity can lead to both cinematic and cultural failure. By whitewashing its cast, distorting Egyptian mythology, and prioritizing spectacle over substance, the film alienated audiences and reduced one of the world's most fascinating mythologies to a shallow, westernized fantasy. Its disregard for the cultural and historical significance of its source material not only perpetuated harmful stereotypes but also missed an opportunity to celebrate the richness of Egyptian heritage. Authentic representation in storytelling is not just a moral imperative, it also makes for better storytelling. Audiences crave narratives that reflect the diversity of human experiences, told with respect and care. While Gods of Egypt highlights the pitfalls of Hollywood's past missteps, the growing success of inclusive and culturally respectful films offers hope for the future. Movies like Black Panther and Everything Everywhere All at Once prove that authenticity and representation not only enrich storytelling but also lead to critical and commercial success. By learning from the failures of Gods of Egypt, Hollywood has the opportunity to tell more meaningful, impactful stories that honor the cultures they draw from and inspire audiences for generations to come.